Welcome to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast, the show where aspiring and experienced matchmakers come to sharpen their skills, grow their businesses, and elevate the matchmaking industry. Your host is ARLENE WASHBURN, an award-winning ethical matchmaking advocate, mentor, and industry innovator. Let's dive in.
Hi, everyone. I'm ARLENE WASHBURN, your mentor in all things matchmaking, from building a profitable business to navigating the emotional side of this work. I created this podcast to share insights, strategies, and stories that help both aspiring and established matchmakers grow with integrity and impact. And today's guest is someone who knows what it takes to lead with clarity, coach with compassion, and help people level up in their personal and professional lives. Susan Ascher, the founder of the Ascher Group, is a nationally recognized speaker, leadership coach, and serial entrepreneur. We're diving into leadership, emotional intelligence, and how to show up powerfully, not just with your clients, but for yourself. Let's get into it. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, ARLENE. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. I know you led a team of 200 before pivoting into executive coaching. What were some of the biggest lessons that you brought into the next chapter?
Oh boy, the biggest lessons in the next chapter. I guess we could say that, it's a couple of things. It's not always what you know, but it's who you know, and it's how you know them, right? And it's also the most important thing, I think, in differentiating ourselves is how do we treat people? I have to tell you, ARLENE, I am so tired of everybody telling us to be kind. Okay. When we are living in a world where it's almost becoming a four-letter word, kind, right? So what does it mean? What does it mean to be kind? What soft skills are truly the hard skills in our world today? And especially when you're dealing as a matchmaker with people who, are trying to find love, right? They're in a very sensitive position in their life. Perhaps they've been rejected by someone or by different people on a site. We have to show our empathy, the emotional intelligence, which quite honestly, back, a few years ago, even we called it manners. Now we have a new name for it. We call it emotional intelligence. How do we treat people? Do you treat people? And I'm not talking to you, ARLENE, because I know you, but you have to ask yourself, are you treating people the way you would like to be treated? Are you treating people with empathy and compassion and understanding where they are? And this goes for anybody that you meet. Again, we don't know. Just because somebody has a resting bitch face doesn't mean that they're not working on something internally or someone in their family is dying. I mean, we don't know until we walk a mile in those people's shoes.
That is so true. And, it's interesting. So, what do you think service providers like matchmakers often get wrong about leadership?
What did they get wrong about it? I think they fail to perhaps put themselves in the shoes of the other people, but also leading is not just telling. It's not telling. It's trying to understand the personality of the person. What are the person's strengths? What are their weaknesses? What are the things that are important to them? And when we get right down to it, and you know this better than anyone, ARLENE, what are your core values and how do they align with helping someone and helping someone to identify a mate that perhaps hopefully has the same core values, because that makes for successful relationships no matter what: friendship, marriage, work, you name it, right? We want to be having the same values to be successful. So in terms of leadership as a matchmaker, and it's funny because I've watched some of these shows. What's the one that I watched? Later Daters. Have you seen that? Yeah, Later Daters. So how you can see how different people are, but you can also see the coach telling them, well, maybe you better look at him again in a different light, or maybe forget the fact that I'm making this up because I don't remember everything, but the fact that he's wearing tie shoes instead of loafers. I mean, but it's always, as my mother used to say, you can almost say anything to anyone without obviously swearing. It's always in the presentation, and the tone makes the music. So even if you want to give somebody advice or have them get out of their comfort zone. It's how you say it. And that's what a good leader does, able to get that information across in a way that resonates with the client.
Absolutely. And, when you're dealing with clients, especially in the matchmaking world, where you tend to get a lot of affluent people who don't want to use the apps and they want to hire someone to outsource this area of their life. And it's so important for a matchmaker to show up with with leadership to help that person understand that I've got this. Follow my process. Don't worry. I've got you here. Hold my hand. I will take care of you. Instead of, if you're insecure in what you're doing and you're not able to convey that type of emotion where someone feels safe that you've got them covered, they're going to doubt you every step of the way. They're going to, fight with you every step of the way. Because I've seen this in some situations with matchmakers. So leadership is so important, where you show up on your sales call, on any kind of interaction, where you're leading the way with compassion, to your point, Susan, but also helping people understand that we know what we're doing. We have a process. Trust the process. We've got you. Let us take care of you. And to me, that's leadership. And I also feel that you can't demand respect. You have to command it. And that's where really leadership comes in.
And, I think because people, perhaps they, when it comes to an accountant or a lawyer or someone like that, they view that person as a professional. And I'm not saying matchmakers are not professionals. Of course you are. But the idea is that, and I say this sometimes to my clients too, is like, okay, you hired me because, like you said, I know the process, I know what has to be done, and you can't always question it. You have, and I don't know how many, helped thousands of people. So you have the experience, right? The experience that can dictate. So, yes, leadership. And how do you get that across to a client when they're trying to tell you how to do your work? And but again, it's how you say it, and perhaps it's setting that baseline, those boundaries, when you go to work with someone and telling them, look, there may come a time where I'm going to ask you to do something uncomfortable or something that you don't want to do. Maybe I'm going to ask you to just give this guy a chance because I've met him. I know he's funny. He may not be the best looking, but I think your personality, trust me on this one. Okay, you might not always be right, but the idea is that, like you said, you command that respect that the client will listen to you. And the other thing is that, and this goes for anything, you have to say what you mean and mean what you say. So if you say you're going to deliver something, you have to deliver it. If he's going to have blonde hair and blue eyes, he better have blonde hair and blue eyes, or curly hair and fat, whatever it is, because the more you do that, the greater the trust building becomes over time. Because I'm sure it's not a quick fix when you're working with a matchmaker. I mean, not 100% of the time, right? It's not everybody you set up gets
Get the match. Yeah.
exactly.
That is such a great point that you make, and where you end up in situations in court or something like that, not just in matchmaking, in any business, you can't do the bait and switch. You have to deliver on what you say you're going to deliver, or you shouldn't be in business, because
Right.
it's a danger game for yourself as a business owner, but also it's detrimental to the clients. And I'm a big consumer protection advocate.
Mhm.
So I advocate a lot within the matchmaking realm, because it's an industry where there is a lot of professionalism. And Susan, you'd be surprised. We have Harvard graduates. We have, a lot of Ivy League people that are in matchmaking, former lawyers. Some of my students have been lawyers, guidance, school counselors, social workers. And then they feel this calling to go into this profession. And
Mhm.
it truly is a profession. It's not like the old days of the Yenta and all that. Those people still exist, and I love them to death, because a lot of it is done for free. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be interviewing someone pretty soon who is in the Jewish community, and she does a lot of free matchmaking for people who are not in the position to make those investments. But it is a profession, and they do have a process, and they have systems, and and you also invest a lot of money at the very least, it's definitely in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
Today we were just listening to a presentation by one of my colleagues whose price points start at 150,000 to 250,000 to work with them for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an investment. She gets a lot of celebrities and people that are very affluent. She also has the matches for them, because I don't think everybody should be charging that price.
Right.
But how to show up, right, with integrity and to really deliver on what you say. And you mentioned the word boundaries, and this is an area that we should kind of talk about a little bit, as you being a leadership coach, that what I'm finding is in matchmaking or real estate or whatever, that people just have no boundaries. They are on their phones 24/7, beholden to these clients. They don't have work hours. I don't subscribe to that. I started out when I was a matchmaker. I started out trying to be there for all my clients 24/7, and then I was like, wait a second, I'm burning myself out. I'm not going to be a better matchmaker by doing that. On the contrary, I'm exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
I need to create boundaries. And that's when I started to establish my working hours and things like that. So, what are your thoughts? Because I know you're a consultant and a coach. So, how do you, build boundaries with your clients? And what
Well,
recommendations?
the first boundary that I have, and it comes to communication, believe it or not. So,
Mhm.
and or maybe you could put it under the rubric of style, but the first thing I want to tell people is that I will not go on ad infinitum on a text or email conversation. Okay. At some point, I'm going to pick up the phone. So you're just going to have to deal with that. And I don't say it like that, obviously, but I'm going to say that there are times that, first of all, I don't have the time to be sitting on my computer. A lot of times I'm in a session right now. I'm in a podcast. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm not answering. I'm not Johnny on the spot. Even doctors have boundaries. That's why they have answering services. So unless you have an emergency, you're not going to talk to the
Right.
doctor until the following morning. So that's one way, that's one boundary that I have, which is please, there comes a point where we have to hear the inflection, we have to hear the emotion in one another's voice to understand where we are going with whatever project we're working on. But other boundaries are, yes, and by the way, you have to train your client, you have to train them, right?
Mhm.
So, and sometimes it's hard. I'll look at my phone right before I turn it off at, like, whatever, 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'll see that someone, emailed me, and my instinct is to perhaps email them back, but then I say no, because they have to know I am not 24/7, and whatever it is, I mean, nothing could be that emergent, not in our businesses. Okay.
Right.
Like I said, and even if we were doctors, it's not, it goes into an answering machine and then they have a way of getting in contact. So that's another way that I just train them. I'm just not going to answer. I'm not going to be an internet ninja. It's just not who I am. And
Yeah, and
it's
today there's so many inputs because people want to DM you on WhatsApp, on
oh,
LinkedIn, on
oh,
Facebook. Then you got the text, and then you got a phone call, then you have email. It's insane how many inputs you have today that we didn't have back in the day.
no. So, what I would say to you, Arlene, is that that is one boundary that we can set with our clients to say, listen, or, I know you might be excited, or I know you might have to, maybe they have to cancel a date the following night, let's say. Okay, well, it can be done in the morning. I mean, not everything it's not is it important or is it emergent? And that's the question that I would say to your clients. I would say, you have to ask yourself, is it important, emergent, or can it be tomorrow? Because I'm not going to be able to do the job for you or any of my other clients if I'm constantly tethered to my internet and my phone. And that's the funny thing too, that people, um, they, especially I find younger people, I don't know if you've heard this. This is a new thing for Gen Z. I don't know how many clients you have that are Gen Z. Probably not that many, because they don't even want to date at this point. But
Well, I'm not a matchmaker. I teach
you
matchmaking
teach,
at this point.
but to
But,
your clients, to your people out there,
yeah.
to your matchmakers, they don't even answer the phone with hello anymore. They answer the phone and they wait for you to say something. And now that I've told you this, it's going to happen to you. Okay.
Well, my daughter doesn't even answer the phone. It's like
Oh,
she
my.
doesn't like to talk on the phone, so I better text her to tell her that I need to talk to her so she can call me.
It's funny because I'm more, well, and that's so important. And especially to be able to communicate to your matchmaker what you are looking for. And again, the inflection in your voice and your tone says a lot more
Oh my
than
God.
what you can put in an email or a text. So, but boundaries, they have to be set and they have to be communicated clearly. And I think verbally many times in a speaking mode.
Yeah. It just dawned on me that you were a matchmaker, so to speak, when you were matching employees or staffers to companies. And so
Yes.
you have a really good understanding of also the emotional side, because when someone desperately needs someone, they're coming in with all these emotions,
Yep.
which is what matchmakers deal with. And then they have all these requirements. And then sometimes they have this budget that doesn't fit the requirements that they have. So, like, really well, like, you could have easily gone into matchmaking with the skill sets that you.
You never know, Arlene. You never know.
Yeah.
Could be the world just keeps moving on, and we have to keep reinventing ourselves. But I
Well,
had a blast being a recruiter. But there again, too, talking about leadership and emotional intelligence. Someone maybe lost their job, and you're working with them, or someone gets an offer and they don't like it. And how do you explain to them that it's actually a very good offer and that in 6 months you're getting this, or you're getting a sign-on bonus? So yes, and I'm sure that when it comes to matchmaking, because it is a lovey-dovey kind of thing, right? That a lot of your clients, not a lot, but some of them want to, not your clients, I'm talking your audience here, want to tell you how to do your job because they are very emotional, and maybe that has to be stated in the initial intake, that yes, you're going to have emotional highs and emotional lows. I'm going to be there for you, but you're going to have to learn a little bit of self-control, because that's important too, right? Because that goes along with dating someone. We're not even going to get into that, but self-control. And last night, talk about self-control, I was watching Bachelor. I don't watch television. I was watching Bachelor in Paradise. And there's one woman on there, and she's just so whiny to the guy that I'm talking about the dating now.
mhm.
So whiny to the guy. And I thought to myself of this interview today, and I thought, boy, she needs a matchmaker to tell her how to behave, or she's going to lose this guy. So anyway, usurping the conversation.
No,
Sorry.
but it's a good point. And when you deal with clients who are highly emotional, you have to like take yourself out of the equation when you're a matchmaker and have a lot of compassion for what they're going through, because it doesn't matter how successful and how wealthy and they may have all the things, but this area in their life is lacking, and they feel that this is it's important, but it's highly emotional. And so for the matchmaker, it's a real balancing act of being compassionate but also guiding and not getting worked up over it, because they will sometimes lash out at you because it's your fault or whatever. And but that resilience that you're talking about, to your point, is in fact the resilience you need for dating, because
Yes.
it's a process. Even whether you're working with a matchmaker or you're doing it on your own, dating is a process to get to the goal of finding that one person that you feel is appropriate for you. If you don't come into it with the right attitude, you're going to repel people. You're not going to have success, and that's just the sad reality of it. Whether you're paying thousands of dollars, if that's your mindset and your attitude, the results are going to be the same whether you work with a matchmaker or you do it on your own.
So true. So true. Yeah.
Yeah. So your new role tell me about this company that you started after you sold your business of 200 employees.
Yeah. Well, contractors and employees. Yes. So I actually went on a journey with an executive coach that I met at some conference I was attending, because at the time I just kept going out and out and out and out, meaning just not sitting in front of the computer, but rather being out and meeting people and, hopefully stumbling across something. And I did stumble across one of the speakers, the woman that actually was running this conference. And she just spoke to my heart. And I actually started crying and saying, oh my gosh, I think this person can help me. And sure enough, and after 6 months of doing a lot of different things that you do just like in your coaching business, right? In your matchmakers businesses, I she said to me, I think we're done now. I think you're good. And I go, I'm not good. I'm not good. I need 6 more months. I needed somebody, like you said, to hold my hand. And as a result of that, I actually finished the first book that I wrote, which is called Dude, Seriously, It's Not All About You. And I learned so much from her. And I look back and I say, and it was quite the investment. It was quite the investment. Okay. It was 5 figures, which is quite the investment. And I look back at that and I say, geez, I would have never been able to do the events that I do, have written the book that I wrote. Meaning I had someone there to push me to say, just like your matchmakers have to push their clients to do things that are uncomfortable. I remember the first time I had an event and I called her up and I said, Patricia, I only have 2 people coming. She said, aren't they lucky? Aren't they lucky? They get to be just the 2 of them with you. And I thought, wow, nobody else is going to know. I mean, that was, I guess, I don't remember putting, a lot of that stuff was more private, so I didn't put it on all the social media. But now I do. Now I do with most of my events. But I learned so much from that person, and she became my trusted advisor. And I look back and I say, I look back at the revenues that I've built over the last years, and I know for a fact I could have never done it myself. And so, to your matchmakers out there that are making these matches, and I'm in awe of that. I think that's must be a very tough job. But if you really take the time to understand your client, I don't think it's that. I mean, it shouldn't be that hard. Yes, it's like recruiting. You're not going to hit every single one, and maybe you're going to go 10 times and hit nothing. And then all of a sudden, I remember a client saying to me, I sent someone in, and they got the job, and the client said to me, "Oh, nice fee for sending one person in." I go, "Yeah, well, you forgot about the 25 that I just interviewed in the last week." So, and I'm sure it's the same thing in matchmaking, right? Yeah.
The more and more I think about what you were doing before, and I'm like, oh my gosh, she was totally a matchmaker just in the business world, right?
Are you
And,
recruiting me to be a matchmaker?
but I
Never.
also love, everything you said about working with a coach. And I think that's why good coaches are like killing it, because people, and I respect, going to a therapist if you're dealing with trauma and everything else. But if you have goals that you want to achieve, I think working with a coach, and a lot of matchmakers are also coaches, it's more future forward. In other words, you basically say, okay, this is my goal, and that coach is going to help you achieve those goals, and is going to keep you on task, and is going to help you get out of your own way, and it's going to, cheer you on when you're
Yes,
down,
that's the key.
right?
What's the difference between your son or daughter getting cheered on by the coach in soccer and also, or baseball or football or whatever MLB or NFL they're going to be going to because they have coaching? But yes, and they have someone there and they're telling them the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? That's what
Yeah.
they're not telling the kid all the time they're doing great. Sometimes they have to change their direction. And I'm sure that happens with matchmaking.
Yeah. It's very, very, the funny thing is that in the matchmaking world, sometimes you have clients that show up who don't want coaching. And so you have to finagle a way to incorporate that, because if you're not having success, there might be a block that you're not aware of. And because matchmakers always do feedback after every introduction, you're hearing firsthand in an honest way from that person who went on a date with you who doesn't want to go on a second date. You're hearing from that person why. When you're out there on your own in the wild dating, people don't tell you why they don't want to go out with you again. They'll just ghost you, or
Right.
they'll be nice about it. Oh, it's not you, it's me. But with matchmaking, typically you really kind of try to pull that information out. And
Mhm.
you're very careful with that information, because, like, I remember when I was a matchmaker, I had this one guy, and he was in his 60s, and he was a talker. And the women felt like he wasn't asking them any questions, like he almost like he wasn't interested. So the first person told me that, and I kind of gave some coaching without the feedback. Then the second person, then the third person, then at that point, the feedback came in, so he didn't know who it was coming from. But it was like, I'm getting this feedback, so be mindful of how much talking you do on the date, and make sure that you're asking questions, and then state back what they say, so that they, because that's another thing, when you have conversations, sometimes people don't acknowledge that it landed. So you feel like you're talking into the abyss, which happens
Right.
with my husband all the time. But I'm like,
He's
were you
not
listening to me? Yeah, you said blah blah blah, and I'm like, well, acknowledge that you heard what I said.
Oh, that's so funny.
So yeah, so it's really tricky. I want to shift gears a little bit. I understand you're doing events and you are a speaker. Right now, a modern matchmaker today is on TV, is writing books, is a speaker, is running events, is consulting with, media and all this stuff. And so, what would you say to matchmakers who want to do these events and who want to be out speaking, which I think is a great way, honestly, to get clients, because I think people get to know you much better when you're a speaker, and then
Mhm.
they feel like, okay, yeah, this is someone I want to work with. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's so funny. And this is not a pitch, but I'm just being honest. I mean, most people do not know how to speak publicly.
Yeah.
And, you get one shot. I mean, I had a spot on CBS for a couple of years. I had a great PR firm, 5 o'clock in the morning, but I was there once a month talking about employment, recruiting, etc. You got one shot to your first shot, and you better come out of the box knowing what you're talking about. So, and I don't think a lot of people do, and I don't think they know how to dress. And I think, that is something that, listen, just like I said, I have a coach. All right. Your matchmakers are coaches. Did they ever have a coach? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, I'm the coach consultant for the matchmaking world, but there's other people out there doing the work that I do as well.
But
And
you
yeah, a
can't
lot of them
you
invest.
can't do it all. But I'm saying when it comes to speaking in particular, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah,
you have
that's
to
a whole thing.
you have it's a whole thing, right? It's a whole thing. Events. I mean, I do my own events. I know I could hire somebody to do it, but I love doing it. Just like I love throwing a Super Bowl party, and I do it every year for 60 people. So, but it's either it comes naturally to you or it doesn't. But in the case of doing an event, you have to be organized. You have to know how to use, and all this,
Mhm.
just your eye contact, and how do you get your list, and how do you send it out, and where's it going to be? And so it sounds so easy, doesn't it? It sounds so easy. And then, you cross everything, making sure that you're hoping that you have enough attendees, right? And of course, in my case, I have sponsors, and that would be really great if your matchmakers had sponsors. Who would they be? I'm sure there's tons of people that could be tons of
Mhm.
products and services that could sponsor their events. But yes, I think, hey, even if they start out speaking at the public library, believe it or not,
Yeah.
because, and especially, there are people, or at a place like that, right? They don't have to even spend money. They just go to the library and say, can we use one of your rooms? And I'll, whatever. I'm trying to think of other venues like that wouldn't cost money, because sometimes they do cost money, but maybe but they belong to a private club. They could get a room there. But you do have to be organized. But yes, I mean, speak, this, Arlene, because you speak. How have you ever spoken and not gotten a client? I haven't. I've never
Never.
spoken.
I've always gotten clients, or if I go to a conference, if I do any networking, because you have to, like, these are the areas, and I want to touch on that too, because when you network, you have to be very intentional.
Hmm.
And so if you go to an event and you invest money to go to where you're paying $500 for an event, and you are in a business where you need to be getting clients, you have to know how to network and how to get clients, or you're just wasting your time and money. You can't
Hmm.
just go sit in a corner and find that one person that you know and chit chat. In fact, sometimes some of my colleagues that I love, when we go to these matchmaking conferences, I'm networking. I'm like, I love you, but I'm
You're
on.
here to
I'm
make
working.
business. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, totally, totally.
yeah.
But but I also would say that having someone help you curate something, find a topic that you can become expert in, And I don't know what it might be how to dress on a date. It might be follow-up date. It might be all of those things. But, and also, a lot of times the client, and I'm sure you have this too, will say, well, what do you want to talk about? I say, it's not what I want to talk about. It's what does your audience need? And that's what you want to ask as you go to become a speaker. You're not going to jam something down their throat because you think they need it. What do you think your audience would gain from this?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the demographics of your audience? That's important too, right?
Absolutely.
And you have to decide on all that. But the other thing is you just have to take the first risk and do it. And hopefully you make it. And if you fail, you brush yourself off and you figure out what made it fail. And next time you're more conscientious and follow a better regime to make that happen,
Absolutely.
But I do think that speaking is a great way, and events. So you tell me, have you tell me about an event. I'm just curious that for.
Okay, so I started my career in the pharmaceutical industry doing events. We used to do 11,000 meetings for one big name company I won't name. I was the director, so I had a team who would do those events. And then when I left the industry, I immediately gravitated to events. And that's how I built my database of 25,000 people when I was a matchmaker, because they were coming to my events. And it's all about an event where you're controlling the list. Because if you're going and just showing up and you're not getting access to the people who are there, etc. So I got sponsorships by Equinox Gym, sponsorships from Van Gogh Vodka. They actually used to sponsor all of my events. You have to be very strategic, because I see some of my matchmakers start doing events, but then they're investing, and I would make money on my events without even getting. And if I got a client, that was gravy, but I already had the liquor companies were sponsoring my events. I had different things. And then people just think about like socials, but I think having like, for example, one time I had a plastic surgeon come in and speak to everybody about all the different procedures and what they mean and how much they cost, etc. Like topics of the things that the client would, I would get women that would come into my office and say, well, I definitely want to start dating, but I need to lose a few pounds or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I would listen to the complaints and say, okay, in my next event, I will bring a speaker to talk about that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you make it interesting and it's palatable, and then when I was speaking, I would speak to women's networking groups, and obviously not everybody there was single.
Right.
So signature talk was how dating and networking were similar, and it was kind of funny. People would laugh their asses off about the similarities about dating and networking.
Right.
So you just have to find that one thing that's going to. You can have a signature talk and then just kind of tweak it to the audience. But yeah, a lot of matchmakers are doing events. That's why I brought that up with you, because I want them to start thinking about events in a different way, and not just. I also like showing up to somebody else's event and speaking there, so I don't have to do all the heavy lifting and create the event.
Yeah. But yes, and I think you hit on something. And for my events, I have sponsors. Mine are of a different ilk, because I have a financial advisor, and I have a bank, and I have an accounting firm, and a lawyer, a legal firm, because that's kind of what I
The
am
genre.
doing. Those are the kinds of people I'm helping. So, and they get all that free press every time I go out with, an email to my list saying when it is and where it is, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, but I think it has to be well thought out. I think it goes back to what I said is it's not so much even what it's who you know. Who do you know that is going to show up, and are you making sure you have that list? I'm sure they do, but that's very, very important. And maybe in the case of a list with a matchmaker, not a bad idea to go out there. I'm going to say once a month, because if you say once a week, it'll be overwhelming. But once a month, maybe it's once every other month to start. Something about dating, or like you said, you haven't lost the 5 pounds you want to lose. Don't worry about it. Here's a recipe not food, but here's a recipe for success. And in the meantime, get out there and whatever it is, like a white paper, we call them, right?
Yeah.
And they can do that and just make themselves. And I find with myself, because I do golf events, right? someone will write back to me. Somebody will get it and they'll, oh, I don't play golf, but I have a friend who does. Can I send it to him? And I'm like, of course. So that's why keeping those lists up to date and perhaps sending out little tidbits here and there is helpful. It's more personal than just, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do LinkedIn and Facebook and all that, but it's more personal when it comes off a list. And even sometimes, even though I send it to thousands of people will write back to me, hi, Susan, sorry, I can't come, because it looks so
Right.
personal. They think that I wrote it to them. So,
yeah. That is such a good point, Susan. I often talk to the matchmakers about what they typically have a free database because they need to be able to tap into a database to support their clients in addition to recruiting. And sometimes they don't send out newsletters. And I'm like, why aren't you sending these people? You could be providing value about dating, about places to go, what's happening in the area if you're a hyper-local matchmaker, let's say in New York. And here are some events that you might want to consider. Like, constantly be top of mind advertisement, if you will.
Yeah.
And I do still believe that emails are important because if you're on social media and Facebook deletes your account and you have a bunch of people following you, you're done. If those people are not in your email, you don't own those that list. That
Right.
list is owned by the social media. So I think it's so important for people to also just connect. I mean, I'm fortunate because I have a 70% open rate, which is unheard of when it comes to an email list. It's not a huge list, but the people that are in there are interested. I give a lot of value. It's really about every so often I'll post if I have an event or a new course coming up, if people want to get involved. But I am providing value because that's the other thing. If you're going to contact people and just hit them over the head to buy this, buy this, buy that,
No, it doesn't work.
they're going to tune you out. You need to provide value. That's really critical.
Yep.
Same with speaking, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, I think for some of those out there that may be scared or lacking the confidence, get someone to help you. Someone pays you to find them somebody to help them. Invest in yourself, and that goes for any entrepreneur. And that's a big thing, I would say. And I have to tell you, what percentage of your matchmakers out there are women, and what percentage are men?
I would say in the matchmaking world altogether, I would guess 80% are women.
Yeah, I would think
And
so.
and the folks that I surround myself with are always learning. They believe in continuing education, which is something that I believe in. That's my only addiction is to be constantly learning.
Mhm.
And I always talk about that with my students. Like, don't set it and forget it. Nothing stays the same. You have to constantly be look at your website. Something might be, might have gotten a little screwed up or something. Or if you create a contract, don't think that contract is good forever. You got to look at it every time. When you have an issue with a client, go look at your contract. Make sure that you're always improving, always growing. If you're not growing, you're dying.
You're
So,
dying. That's right.
so yeah, it's so important. I'm curious though, like who is like, give me an avatar of the kind of people that you work with.
Well, a lot of, I would say a lot of people who are in some sort of transition. So I'm really a performance coach, right? So whether it comes to how someone communicates, whether it comes to making a career change, they're actually looking to go from one job to another, or they are, they've been let go at 50, 55, and they're in transition. And what are they going to do? Because they're not getting back in the corporate world. I can tell you, I'm not a betting woman, but I haven't lost the bet yet. Unless they have, somebody, a godfather somewhere that's going to give them a job, but it's very rare today. It's almost non-existent. So I help those people, and what I love to do is help people with the EQ, the emotional intelligence, the executive presence, the leadership, because as I stated a little bit earlier, soft skills are the new hard skills. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
If you have the ability, if you have the charisma and the ability to engage people and build that trust in people, they'll want to work with you. So those are anything really to do with career, leadership, transition, performance. But I will say, I do not call myself a life coach, but I've done some serious life coaching because I don't know, I just fell into it. Somebody referred me. I had a
It's
young
all
woman.
connected, right?
It's
It's
all
all connected.
connected, and your life is it's your experience in your own personal life that leads you to be a great coach, as you are, as I believe I am. It's only experience. I chuckle. I see these people come out. Oh, I've worked for a bank for 25 years. I just got my certification. Do you know, in all these years, not one person has asked me if I'm certified as a coach? Not one. You know what? And if they did, I'd say, look at my awards. That's my certification.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that may be slightly different in your business, but in my business, we have tons of people that are certified. But as you know, you have to be a rainmaker in what you do and what all your people listening are doing. You have to be a rainmaker. You have to be able to make those connections and, i.e., build revenue from it.
Yeah. I'm a big believer of continuing education, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have all these titles that you've gained through studies. I'm not poo-pooing it, but I think some people rely too much on that they went through the coursework, they managed to get through the exams, and they came out the other side, but really didn't learn anything and they cannot demonstrate the skills of what it is that they learned
Yeah.
versus people like Tony Robbins. I mean, Tony Robbins, I think, went as far as high school, right?
Yeah.
And look at how successful he is because he has the emotional intelligence, the ability, which, people talk about sales in a way that is just, so scary. Is this, is that. Sales is all about emotional intelligence. It's listening to your clients and what are their needs, and are you able to provide the solution for their needs?
Mhm.
And why are you starting a business in the first place? Because you want to solve a problem, right? So that's why a lot of people go into matchmaking because they're trying to solve a problem right now that's huge, right?
Yeah.
The loneliness epidemic,
Yeah.
and a lot of people who are just not connecting on every age group, by the
Yeah.
way. It's not just the young kids. I know a lot of younger people waiting longer to get married. I think the average guy is getting married at 40.
What?
Yes. Okay. And then the boomers are still the number one daters out there who have all mostly
Later.
gone through divorce.
Yeah.
The later daters, right?
That was
I
so
know. I know
funny.
Logan Yuri. I actually have her book, which I think is a great book, and I met her at a conference. The coach that's on that show, she's really
Uh-huh.
good. But yeah, it's so interesting how everything is correlated. That's what you were saying. You're not technically a life coach, but you are because
Yeah.
you're teaching people on the things that are important in their life when it comes to career, how to show up, how to have a business, which you've been there, done it, right? So
Right.
all of that, everything
Experience.
serves you. Hmm.
Yeah, experience. And I think that's why I chuckle when people get their certification. And what does it do? Because the better one is a 30-year-old saying they're a coach. Now, I'm not saying that they can't maybe coach on something, but coaching, career, life, it's experience. It's failing and standing up and succeeding and failing and succeed. Getting through all that and continuing on, and not, and like you said in the very beginning, having resilience. And that's what you have to have. And that's what what's the difference if your kid is learning baseball, hockey, or soccer, whatever it is. Hey, they had a bad game. Okay, resilience. You know what? Try it again. Try it again. The Yankees don't win. Obviously, the Yankees aren't doing too well at all right now. But the Yankees don't win every game. Nobody wins every game. And in life, that's the same thing. But I do think it's funny when people get these certifications without the knowledge to be able to help people.
Yeah, I do think that. I mean, like my daughter was born an old lady, so she can coach anybody. That girl, I keep trying to get her to come up my podcast, but she's very much a recluse and doesn't want to have any notoriety. But what a smart person. Logan Yuri's a very young girl too, and just very attuned. There's these old souls that are born all the time that come into the
They're
world.
outliers,
Yeah,
Arlene. They're outliers. I mean, most 30-year-olds, they don't have the soul to be able to do that.
yeah.
So,
Well, I'm thrilled with the work that you're doing. I think it's so important now more than ever. People are losing jobs left and right. They've
oh
been
yeah,
doged.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing at being doged, but just the term itself is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So many people who felt like they got a job with the government thinking that they had job security, that they'd have a pension, and end up in these situations now where they're getting chopped left and right for no good reason. And I hope that many of those people who have the skill sets and the calling and desire to become matchmakers will consider that, because we need more matchmakers. Matchmakers may not want to hear that, but I believe that we need to get to a level where every person knows a matchmaker, like everybody knows a realtor, right?
Exactly.
We
Exactly.
were the person that I heard today who was speaking at a matchmakers group. They take 26 clients per year. That's one big firm with, I don't know how many people, six people, and they only take 26 clients because their fees are high enough that they can afford that.
Mhm.
And my point is that most matchmakers don't take that many clients, that it's a very small. So we need more matchmakers. So I really hope more people will go into the industry, including you, Susan. I think you would be a phenomenal matchmaker. You could be working with the later daters.
You never know. I have to explore it. I have to explore it. But what was I going to say about matchmaking? It's yeah, I do think it's important, and I think it's very important in a world where even though we're so connected, with IT and all that, we're disconnected emotionally from people. We don't know how to talk to people. We don't know how to, you talk about intimacy. I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about the ability to let your hair down and be who you are, be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and not put on any show or hide something. That's when you know you have true love. I think when you're able to really just be your true self, and I think it's hard. It's hard when you're on the damn phone all day long, and I don't mean talking on it. I mean pecking away on it. But yeah, I will have to consider that. What I did want to say with regard to when you were talking about the Doge thing, that goes for every single person. I said it earlier in the world. You always, for you too. What is dating going to look like in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years? We don't know. I mean, but we have to always be thinking to the future because nothing stays the same. I mean, nothing stays the same. And forget, even you talk about AI and chat GPT, we may need that because the generations coming behind the boomers and the X's are smaller. We may need to have AI and robotics do some of those jobs because we simply won't have the numbers of people, but we also won't have the seasoning. So there may come a time, but to think at 40 or 50, you're going to be doing this forever, you better have a plan B.
Yeah, I agree. I do have a theory about that. And I think that because of the nature of the work that matchmakers do, I don't foresee them getting replaced by AI anytime soon.
Right.
The emotional intelligence, and I mean, ChatGPT, all of that's getting better and better, and I love it. But when somebody shows up on a call crying, I don't foresee ChatGPT being able to handle those calls. So I
No,
do feel that there is a good opportunity for longevity in the matchmaking world. It's probably one of the oldest professions out
it
there.
is. It is. It is. But anyway, this is not matchmaking, but for someone who's doing what you're doing, there's another show. It's called Arranged. Have you
Hmm.
heard of that?
No, on
Where
TV, Netflix.
yeah, Arranged. It's on, I think it's on Hulu. And there were three couples. One was an Asian Indian couple. One was a Romani, AKA gypsy couple,
Mm-hmm.
where they get arranged at about 18 or 19. And then the third couple was a Southern couple. Um, it's just interesting because it's similar, but they just get put together and that's that. They have to figure it out.
Are they arranged by family or by a
By
matchmaker?
family, by family.
Okay, yeah. So there's statistically, arranged marriages tend to last longer.
Isn't that
But
funny? Even if they're very rocky in the beginning.
the reason for it, though, is because there's an alignment with family, with core values. They're of a similar socioeconomic status. They're of a similar age. All the things that align to people are being done by others in the periphery, the parents, etc. And then when they put these people together, I mean, the chemistry and all of that actually can grow over time. I know people don't want to hear that, but it's
That's what happens. That's what happens. Yeah.
yeah. So it's a very interesting thing. Susan, I know our audience got so much out of this conversation, especially those of us who wear many hats and hold emotional space for others every day. You've given us like a real tools and, to lead better communication, to be smarter about that and to hold our ground and to have grace and all that good stuff. But for those who are listening, I want to make sure that if you are interested in getting a coach who's going to help you, doesn't matter if you're a matchmaker, whoever's listening, anyone out there who needs the leadership skills to be able to excel, even someone who's at a job who wants to advance, they need leadership because I was always a hiring manager and someone who, managed big groups and stuff. And when someone wanted to move up, they needed to demonstrate before they got that job. And I think people don't get it. They think that they're entitled because they've been in a position for a long time. So this applies to everyone. Leadership is such an important topic and something that people need to research and embrace and find that coach like Susan Ascher to help you with that because it's important. And of course, if anybody out there wants to be a professional matchmaker, reach out at lovepromastermind.com. We'd love to help you out. And Susan, maybe some of your clients want to do that. Where can people reach you?
So, and I'm going to give them I always give my cell phone. I usually get 1 or 2 or 3 texts or calls. My cell phone is 973-919-8180. 973-919-8180. And then you can see my name there. So my email is Susan at my full name, susanascher.com. So Susan at SusanAscher.com. Don't forget the C in Asher, or I won't get it.
Absolutely. And there's always susanascher.com. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so grateful to have
And finding me. How did you find me? That's my last question. How did you
I think you found me on LinkedIn and we started a little chat and then I was like, hey, let's talk. Come on the show.
I don't remember how we connected, but all good. So thank you so much for taking the time and having me, and to your right hand, Jason, back there, for doing all the good audio visual stuff. And thanks again, Arlene. And I hope our paths cross again soon.
Absolutely. We'll stay connected. I'll send you an email. Until next time, folks, lead with love. Don't forget to lead yourself too.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Have you ever felt called to help others find love? You might have the heart for matchmaking, but without the right training, turning that passion into a thriving business can feel impossible. Most matchmaking courses give you outdated theories and a certificate, but no real-world strategy to build a successful business. That's where Love Pro Mastermind Academy is different. Our live Done With You training goes beyond theory, helping you develop matchmaking expertise, implement sales and marketing strategies, and master the art of client success. With expert-led instruction, accountability, and a community of like-minded professionals, you'll learn how to identify your niche, attract high-quality clients, create a seamless matchmaking process, grow a sustainable, profitable business. With over a decade of experience, we don't just train matchmakers, we create leaders in the industry. Are you ready to become an LPMA certified matchmaker and build a business that changes lives? Apply today at lovepromastermind.com.
Thank you for tuning in to the Matchmaker Mentor Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with fellow matchmakers and friends. For more resources, training, and inspiration, visit lovepromastermind.com and follow us on social media. Remember, matchmaking isn't just a career, it's a calling. Let's keep building connections, changing lives, and growing together. Until next time, stay inspired and keep matching.